Welcome to this webinar around Arctic Game Lab and the gaming industry in the north of Sweden. My name is Daniel Wilén, but I'm actually one of the good guys, I promise you that. And I'm cluster manager for the Arctic Game Lab, and I'm sitting here with Anja Palm, chairman of the board for Arctic Game Lab.
Yes.
And we have a lot of people with us that you will hear from during this talk that will end at about 12:30, so you know that. And just before we go, so we mentioned that if you have questions, please write them in the chat and we will try to answer them as we go. We'll end with a short Q&A after this program. So first, about Arctic Game Lab, as we have you here, Anja. Could you tell us a bit, how did this all start?
It was actually a coincidence that I came across an article about this guy living in Stockholm, working in the gaming industry, and he wanted to move back to the north of Sweden, to Luleå, where he came from. The challenge was that there was no game industry, so in order for him to move, he would have to give up on his passion and profession. So he had an offer for the municipalities to start building a gaming industry. So I got in contact with him, and after a few discussions, he agreed to do a pre-study in Skellefteå, and that was Mikael Stenmark, and the rest is history.
The rest is history.
Yes.
So when was the Arctic Game Lab founded, and why would you say?
We started the Arctic Game Lab in 2015, and by 2016, all the 5 municipalities that's part of Arctic Game Lab today has joined, and it's a partnership between the municipalities of Umeå, Skellefteå, Piteå, Luleå and Boden. We decided to start to do this together to see that we're a larger region. The most obvious reason was to keep the talents that were educated by the Luleå University of Technology, for example, in game programming and game design. Before they all moved away to other areas, and we wanted to keep them. But we also wanted to attract people like Mikael that worked in the gaming industry in other places and now looking for a different type of life, wanting to move to the north of Sweden. We could see great benefits in combining the gaming industry with other sectors and find cross-sectoral collaborations. Overall, we thought, and we now know, that this creates a more attractive region that benefits all parts of the industry.
So what are you saying, what would be the goals for this industry?
Very early, we decided on 2030 goals. So by the year of 2030, we wanted to have at least 1,000 students in game-related educations, 1,000 game developers in at least 100 companies, and to have 10 international successes.
That's a lot.
Yes.
That's a lot. So 1,000 developers, 100 companies, 1,000 students, 10 successes. So how are we doing on these goals right now as we speak?
The development has been fantastic. So in just a few years, starting from basically zero, we had a few companies in some of the cities that joined Arctic Game Lab. Today we got numbers, they're not official yet, so we'll come back to that beginning of June. But we can see that there are 70 companies, 400 game developers, and 19% of the game developers are women. And it has been important for us to work to create an industry that's equal. We're not there yet, 19%. It's still far better than when we started, but that's one thing that we're working on. And it's 2020, so we still got 10 years to go, and we are very positive to reach the goals we've set for 2030.
Yeah, it's been growing fast, so that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
What would you say are the keys to success?
After the pre-study, we realized that this is something that we have to work on, and we also realized that it's not the municipality itself that can do the work. So we made a procurement for project leaders, and they've been part of building that team from the start, and that also created a very flexible organization working very close to the companies. But it's also because of all the companies, entrepreneurs, people that love games and want to work with games that understood that if we're going to grow this industry, we have to work together. And I think that the feeling between the companies is very focused on collaborations, and we see that if we do this together, it's easier for us to grow, to attract talent, but also to attract new educations.
Yeah, if it's one thing that I realized when moving into this industry, the collaboration and like the sense of friendship in this industry is just amazing. So everyone out there within the industry, thank you for just being you.
Thank you.
We are going to watch a film. You're in this film, I know, and some other prominent people are as well. So we'll just leave it to our technician to start that movie.
Arctic Game Lab is a cluster to give games companies the best possibilities to develop games in the north of Sweden for a global market. We could see that we had literally no games in this area, but we have really good possibilities for games to grow here. So that's why we started the Arctic Game Lab. And we can see in just a few years, many companies has developed. We have students graduating from universities in games programming and in many other ranges of educations.
As a student, we have teachers coming in from world-leading studios. And it always blows my mind because I'm thinking, wow, they really got to travel a long ways to get here. But it turns out they actually moved back here.
I want to be able to have a better balance in my life. Living in Stockholm is nice, a lot of things to do, but I want my kids to grow up in a smaller city.
It's easier to get your employees to stay here than in Stockholm or Paris. You have a more community feeling, you have a perfect childcare, and you have a close to the nature, and you have all of these positive values that you get from living here.
We already have many successful companies up here in the region, like Goldtown Games and Level 8 and Turborilla. And just think of what the possibilities are in 5 years if we add another 10 companies, another 20 companies.
Companies in this region will have close to talent coming from the university. They will have close to other games companies where we can see new corporations are being built, and companies are helping each other to be better.
Nordsken is important because we want to get the common people to know about what we do, like a showroom, like a big showroom for different kind of cultures like the gaming industry.
My view of what was going on here has definitely broadened. I will say that now I already have 5 or 6 business cards from people who I know we will be collaborating with in the future. And I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't come here.
I think it's time to go now with esports or gaming. So, I mean, if you don't jump on the train now, you're going to be lost. It's going so fast, and it's going to be the biggest thing around, I think.
There is also big support from the region in terms of helping to find places for people to live and people to move up here. So I think it's a big support for the industry.
In the north of Sweden, we have high quality of life, where it's easy to get your dream house, to be close to preschool and school, and still work on a worldwide market.
So, welcome back. We saw some lovely footage from Arctic Game Week there as well, and Nordsken. And for those of you that don't know about that, make sure you do for next year, okay? Because you don't want to miss that. One of the individuals very important for the start of Arctic Game Lab and these EU-funded projects, we will hear from him now, actually, Lars Lindblom, because he will tell us a bit about the results from Innovation Game, which is a EU-funded project that has helped funding the development of our business up here. So I would like to say the screen my friend, is yours, Lars.
Thank you, Daniel. My name is Lars Lindblom, and if Anja was the one finding the article and Michael was the one starting to work, I was the third one in on this. My role is to fit the game development to the rest of the innovation system up here in the north. So I started in 2015, and I will try to present some of the results. But first, let's see if I can share the screen. There we go. Let me just check. Am I presenting now?
Not at the moment, I think. I can't see anything, but still. While you're working with that, we can just say that the Project Innovation Game started at 2016 and ended last fall, which also is when Innovation Game 2 started. So we are currently running a new project. So to follow up on Innovation Game Part 1. So we'll see here if Lars gets some help adjusting his video, and we will get some interesting numbers and background from the project.
I think I'll just do it without the slides.
Well, I'm just looking at you, so that's fine. Go ahead, Lars.
So, see if I can just quit this. Here we go. Yeah. Just let me start by telling you something about the gaming industry. It's growing extremely fast. It's nothing like it in Sweden. Since 2006, it's been growing on an average of 35% a year, and it's not slowing down, although the figure starts to become really big. Last year we had a growth of 42%, so it might even be accelerating. The corona effect on the gaming industry is also positive, so we see that the world market for games are increasing by more than 20% due to corona also. It's really exciting, and to put it in a Swedish perspective, the export value of games is now bigger than electricity, trucks, iron ore, pulp. So it's becoming one of the really big and important industries in Sweden. And we have great roots, deep roots in the industry here. Robert will tell you about the LTU education for games, which started the end of the 80s. So it's been there for a long time. So we can see that the people educated in Skellefteå is now running the games, part of the games industry here in Sweden. So we have them all over. And we also see that a lot of the wealth that's been built due to games has also roots up here in the north. We have almost a game dev billionaire in every municipality in Arctic Game Lab. And we can also see that the big public companies are here. Three of the biggest have decided to, both Paradox, Stillfront, and Embracer are working, have a part of their operations up here. And we have already great success when it comes to games. Magica was first out, still on top 40 for PC games, and Unravel, I need to mention that as well, from the Umeå studio Coldwood. But that's for the roots. Now for Innovation Game, where I was the project leader. It started in 2016 and ended last fall. We had a budget of around 16 million, which half came from the EU, 6 million from the municipality of Sweden, and the rest, the 2 millions from the municipalities of Boden, Piteå, and the region of Norrbotten. So altogether, it was the biggest project run to get the innovation system ready for games in the north of Sweden. And this is just the biggest one. There are other projects as well beneath the umbrella of Arctic Game Lab. But the results also, it's good to know that we had a goal to develop 40 product concepts within gaming industry during that time, and we had a pace of around 40 to 50 concepts a year, and that keeps on going also after the project is closed. And the aim was to launch 10 games during the project, and now we have a pace of around 1 game every month, and we've been keeping that pace for 2 years now, so it's much better than we aimed for. We had a goal also to see 6 new established game studios. But the results are much better. Anja mentioned that we have around 70 studios today, starting off with 6 in 2015. And when it comes to employment, the goal was for 30 new jobs, but we got from 65 to up to 400. Preliminary figures, so you have to wait a couple of more weeks so we will get that right. But it looks like we created, or the project has been part of creating more than 200 jobs, more than 300 jobs. Thanks. We have the goal. We have set the goal for 30 events that would make the region more attractive or create awareness of what we're doing up here. And we could conclude we stopped counting when we passed 100 events. And there, of course, it's good to know that the Arctic Game Week is the biggest event that we have. Unfortunately, we couldn't do it this year, but we're looking forward to a post-corona time where we will try to make the Arctic Game Week even better. But the Arctic Game Week is also a good example of the collaboration that Daniel was talking about. We've been focusing on collaborating as much as we can. The aim has been to get the innovation system to have the ability to support the gaming industry, and because of that, we try to get as many incubators involved as possible. And there are a network today of 6 incubators that tries to support the industry. And of course, games are developed where there are game developers. So we need to get more game developers up here. Therefore, we wanted to create a network of educators. LTU was the first one, but then we have, I think today there are 7 or 8 educators that's a part of this, and that is also a reason why we now have around 400 students within Arctic Game Lab. And of course, collaboration goes on. We have collaboration with the mining industry, engineering, education, other projects like intersective innovation, Västerbotten, and others. So all about collaboration and fitting the gaming industry to the innovation system. Also putting Arctic Game Lab into a European context has been important. So we have established collaborations with around 20 other game dev clusters around the globe, and some of them we collaborate more with, like Skövde, Oulu, Poznan, Tromsø, Berlin, and others. So we try to communicate a lot, learn from each other, and that helps us create better results and faster growth in the future. So the long-term effect from this project is enhanced capacity for game innovation. It's been our main aim, and we really have achieved that by the concept and the games that are being developed right now. I think we are within our region. We release around one game each month, and I think when we last tried to count, it was around 40 to 50 games being developed. So we early on. There are more games in the pipe than actually out on the market today. And the number of studios are still growing, and we see also more and more developers moving into the region, and we also see a large part of them moving here from other countries, both within Europe but also outside of Europe. And we are also very glad that quite a large number of them are female. When we started off, we had around 7% female developers. Now we have more than almost 20% female developers. So it's been great to run this project and to see the results. And we also did a survey to see what the studios wanted us to do. What are their greatest challenges? And they told us that there are 3 things that are really tricky for them. Recruitment, and that's what we focus on both setting the region as a good place to live, but also trying to get as much education going as possible. Marketing and sales, where we try to have activities supporting them, and we also try to carry their games around the globe to get them to find the market. And financing, of course. They need to find the money to develop their projects. And it's also great to see that they are enjoying what we're doing. They give us an average of a bit more than 4 on a 5 scale. So far we are appreciated by the studios. We try to do our best to keep that position or even get it better. So when I reflect on what has been the key to success, I think both Brian and Anja will mention a couple of things, but on my behalf, I think it's the passion. I think when meeting the other clusters, we are all agreeing on that the fact that the culture beats strategy any day of the week. So we need to have the passion, and we got to have a large volume of people involved in this. We see that there are thousands and thousands of hours spent on this just because it's fun, not because it's wages or anything. So the passion is definitely number one. Anja also named a skilled and entrepreneurial team. I think that's a key issue as well. We have people from the industry helping us out, and we have a good knowledge of the innovation system, which the combination of those two is definitely part of the success. But we also realize that desperation is a good force to have. We can see that the cities, the most desperate cities, are the ones succeeding in establishing a gaming industry, which is it was a revelation to us to realize this. But we can see that in Skövde, with now over 1,000 developers working from Skövde. They had a crisis, and that desperation led to the gaming industry. We see the same in Uleåborg. We can see that in Arctic Game Lab, that the fastest growing municipalities when it comes to games are Boden and Skellefteå, which were the two municipalities with the most desperation back in 2015. And the fourth one, I think it's the if you want to do something like this, you can't make it small. You need to make it big enough so that it matters. We have seen around the other clusters that you need 10 to 15 million a year. Arctic Game Lab is much smaller than that in each municipality. So I think collaboration and the holistic view has helped us to do it a bit cheaper, but still you need to do it big enough so that you can have an organization and make the impact. If you just put some 100,000 or 1 or 2 million a year, it won't. It's better to put the money elsewhere. So that's my take on the project.
Thank you so much, Lars. I hope you all can hear us now again. We'll also make sure that you can see us, because that's so much more fun, I think, like that. Perfect. Thank you so much, Lars. And for your tremendous work, the work of yourself and your team, of course. We are going to hear from Robert Brännström now from Luleå University of Technology. So please, Robert, if you could introduce yourself and tell us a bit more about what you are going to be talking about.
Thank you, Daniel. Yes, I'm Robert Brännström, and I will try to also see if I can share my desktop as Lars tried to do. I will talk about Luleå University of Technology and what type of game-related education and research we do in brief. So we have been in, of course, a part of Arctic Game Lab and the Innovation Game since this started. And we have been, as Lars also said, we've been educating students for over 20 years in these areas. So we had set ourselves some internal goals to increase the competence with areas of what we call applied game technologies and gamification, being a technical university. We, of course, also would like to establish collaboration with the area, especially to involve industry in education and research, and also to establish our research even more into these game-related areas. So if we start with our educational side, we have make a landing site where we collect all the programs and courses we do. This is ltu.se/game. So where we try to collect all the different initiatives we do on the educational side. One thing to highlight is that we have started a new specialization on the 5-year civil engineering program in computer science and engineering in Luleå that we called interactive systems. And there we have included Besides the normal programming in ICT areas, we included courses like real-time graphics, construction of interactive systems and virtual interactive environments to involve that in the old traditional civil engineering program. The program also includes project work for 15 ECTS and the thesis work. So there is a lot of opportunities for companies and others to collaborate with us and the students. We also make some changes to the old program in computer game development, which we now call computer game programming. That runs here in Skellefteå. We have switched the language, so we teach in English, and we have opened it for international recruitment from this autumn. It has been a bit struggling in getting qualified international students to our programs, since we require them to have a second physics course. But we will keep having that program open and start to have students, national students at least. We have reorganized the program content a bit, but it's more or less the same. But we would like to emphasize that it's students come here to learn programming. Then we have the artistic side of our programs, where there have been an internal decision that we should not run education based on artistical competence in Skellefteå. So both the programs in visual arts, the Bachelor of Arts in Digital Design and Film Design, have no admittance this autumn, and the program will be closed for new students. But to overcome that, we will apply to start a 2-year program instead, based on scientific basis, with computer graphics for game and film. And the goal is to, in the future, to come back to have a 3-year bachelor program in this area. Of course, we do a lot of game-related education in other ways as well, both in single subject courses where you can go just a single course, and it have a lot of program courses when we apply game technology in different areas. Going over to the research side, we have so far working with gamification and applied game technologies in the areas of learning and school development, in health science, in different types of educations of computer science and mathematics, with the projects around simulation and visualization, and around virtual film production. And I will just briefly give some short examples of projects we've been running in these different areas. One is a project about working with the person with aphasia to help them when you have problems, when the speaking words is not enough, to help children and persons to express feelings through avatars and other types of interaction means, to help organize a philosophical conversation maybe around this kind of virtual environment, and to have other types of symbols for communications instead of just meeting face-to-face. We have projects around assisting children with reading disabilities to gain more interest into reading. This is an important skill, and to maybe increase that interest and the skills through computer games, where we try out games where there are a lot of text you have to read to get further into the projects or into the games. But around the virtualization side, we worked with a lot of mining educations and companies and mining industry as well. And SIMS is one to work about sustainable intelligent mining systems, where we have created a virtual mine where they can educate and train people through a virtual environment, where you can train everything from finding your way around in a mine, because nowadays you can't let people and students visit the mining environment, but you can also train and prepare for future and new machines and things like that. The picture to the right is an electrical driven mining truck that replaces battery, where you can actually train in the virtual environment before you go into the real work. On the same topic, we're creating a game around mixed reality handbooks, and this was also for mining education, where participants can, in a multiplayer interactive virtual environment, together with the teacher, looking at different type of equipment to get some information. They can interact and learn about these types of equipment that they will start using in their work situation in the future. We have also established some projects around virtual film production, where we combine virtual and augmented reality with the traditional computer graphics, imaging, and game technologies. And where we combine things like motion capture with virtual environments. So in the picture to the left, you can see the actor in the film studio, and on the right you can see a virtual camera that is a camera with no lenses, just a display that are tracked in the virtual environment. And on that positions from the actor, we have added a virtual character as well. So the whole process is digitalized now. And to be able to do this, we build a lot of labs, and where we see collaborations with, of course, with our students that are using our computer labs and other facilities, but also building up mixed reality labs about studying different types of learning laboratories to see how you can learn from using digital equipment in the different ways, but also in a way where we build labs around different types of virtual and production studios. So you see a lot of opportunities to interact with different types of industries, either for the technology side or for the evaluation side in different scenarios. And finally, we also see that, of course, collaboration and gender equality is an important issue for us as a university. We try to invite a lot of industrial people to tell about the industry to our students in different ways, but we also try to support students in different ways. Lars mentioned around Magica, around where we had a group of students in 2006, 2007 that created a game project that was finally in the end commercialized. And later on, we now have Jonas Roinen from computer science students from Luleå that created the game and started the company around Pixadome and his game of Hay Fever. So we support our students in different ways that we see, try to be a part of this kind of industry and very, very early projects. And then of course, we work a lot with other organizations like Luleå Makerspace and Samhällsstiftelsen and other to increase the interest for the gaming industry, both for young students and then for our own students to be part of industry projects in different ways. And one way of doing this is to have this type of gender equality, and what we succeeded during this spring is to actually arrange this type of Arctic Equality Talk that has been broadcasted in the same way in this. And this is some activities that we will continuing throughout the years and trying to establish a more community together with the students. So there was some information from LTU.
Thank you so much, Robert. we'll try to get us back into the picture, which isn't that easy to do all the time. Let's see. Here we are. Thank you, Robert, for that. Not only for that presentation, but also for the work with at Luleå University of Technology. As you said, many actually developers that are considered senior people within the industry started there, so it's quite important. We will now hear from another university. We will hear from Brian and Leona, who will tell us a bit more about something really interesting they have been looking into from Jönköping International Business School. So I will start by giving the screen and the mic to Brian McCauley. Please go ahead.
Thanks.
Brian.
Thanks, Daniel. So we're down here in Jönköping, the city of DreamHack, and Jönköping International Business School is a lot of focus on entrepreneurship and innovation. And we're the Media Management and Transformation Center, and that's all about how digital technologies have changed media is produced and consumed with consumers and society, and how there's transformation with digital stuff. So we're quite relevant for what's happening with the Arctic Game Lab. I'm a games and esports researcher, and I've designed a game, and I've worked with the games industry in Australia and Vietnam. So I have some perspective on what you guys are doing. And I was also doing research on a separate project in digital transformation that gave me a perspective on why the Arctic Game Lab or the Project Innovation Game was successful, because I could see how successful it was. So at this point, our research question for the project is actually, what made Project Innovation Game a success? It's quite nice that we don't have to ask, is it a success? We're actually saying, what made it? And it's kind of the sort of research that's valuable, because it's something that other regions could learn from. So I've been up to northern Sweden twice now to talk to people engaged in the project. I got to go to Nutrien, which was one of my favorite work trips ever. And you know, I've seen the Indie Game School, and I've seen the Comic School, and I've been at the Arctic Game Week, and you know, I've talked to everyone, been in the Northern House in Skellefteå and stuff. And so we've done an initial analysis of what are the things, and I think the first thing that really came up was what Lars said, was the passion. That we call it regional authenticity, because it was people really cared and they were really invested, and European minds had this expertise. And you know, everyone I talked to was from the region and really cared about the region. And I have a lovely quote from someone here: I took a pay cut, but it doesn't matter, because now I have the ability to change the society where I live. And I think that kind of sums it up. We also found that one of the keys to success was the regional collaboration and interaction. Like that, people actually told me there, I'm not Swedish obviously, and but they said like it's unusual to see the different cities working together so well, that Boden and Skellefteå and Piteå, and excuse my pronunciation, actually work together well. And one of the ways that the project was a success was the building legitimacy and credibility, and there was kind of two ways this happened. The development of the education systems there with the Indie School and the Comic School were masterstrokes as far as I could see, because it demonstrated that the project was real and there was something happening. And then there was all that interaction with the wider industry, with the mining industry and stuff, that actually showcased that something was happening, which is important for people to get on board with stuff. The Arctic Game Lab branding itself was a fantastic thing to do. It really made a cohesive leap, so that you're now in Project Innovation Game 2, but you can the AGL brand still exists and kind of holds it all together, and it kind of makes it accessible for an international audience. The network building and creation done by you guys, where you took people from Skellefteå and took them to the events, international events, and showcased their ideas, was fantastic. I mean, I met Johan and everyone down at the Skövde Games Conference, and that's where I got engaged with the project, because they had the best setup in Skövde, that it was, you know, very well marketed, and you could see Arctic Game Lab there, and that's what drew me to it. And I think potentially what I think is maybe the best thing is something I'm calling government as business. Whereas that a lot of times in government, people have short-term visions, and there's a fear of failure, of messing something up. And from talking to everyone up there, I sort of saw how that your municipalities really supported the initiatives, and there was no fear of failure. There wasn't a sense of failure. If something didn't work, it was back to the drawing board, and you restarted it, and that's actually very refreshing. That there was people working together rather than working for themselves, but they all had the same objectives, and it was very refreshing to see. There was no finger pointing or blame. Instead it was truly a collaborative effort. So that's really the first stage of the analysis that we've done so far, and we're looking to write a paper for a top academic journal. Leona here is Professor Leona Acton-Hagen, and she's the head of the Media Management and Transformation Center, and I think she can tell you where we are now with the project.
Okay, yes, thank you, Brian. So basically what I'm doing right now is to go through Brian's interviews, and I am triangulating that with an analysis of all articles that have been published about the Arctic Game Lab in a Swedish press. It's 196 articles altogether so far, and that analysis also helps us to see whether we have missed any important stakeholders so far in the interviews that Brian has been doing in this first round. For me, who's a newcomer now to this project, and I have to admit, I've lived in Sweden for a number of years, but I hadn't been that aware of Arctic Game Lab. There are 6 things that are pretty striking so far, I think. The first, and a number of those have already been brought up, especially by Lars and Anja, but I will still want to quickly go through these again. The first one, I think, is this felt ownership by the different stakeholders involved in the project, and this real commitment to it, what Lars was calling passion. I think that is really striking. The second one is, and that is, I've been part of a big project here in the region, which was not at all as successful. And I think one of the reasons was that we did not, like you do, share the aims. What do we really want to reach with this project? And I think that is really evident from reading the interviews, but also what I read in the papers. Then I think what is also striking is this commitment to actually work for the region rather than to boast your own egos. So it's not about individuals or individual brands. It is really about developing something jointly. And what I appear to be reading, and that's something we need to follow up on, is that it appears to be a situation where you're lucky that the politicians are really on your side. It appears to me that you have a couple of politicians in the area that are actually really interested in games. And I read about one started his own company, even though his main job seems to be a politician. So I think that is quite a lucky situation, because these could be pretty tough challenges otherwise. Then bringing together a range of very different complementary actors. I think that's also a very strong point here. And lastly, I really like the range of different activities that you're experimenting with. I mean, I just love to be part of a game jam at some point. And I also like this idea of actually trying to bring the old industries on board and try to figure out how can we collaborate with them, like this gamification type of activities that you're doing. So as Brian is saying, we're still in initial stages of the analysis. We will need to collect some further data, but we look very much forward to learning more about this journey. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leona. Thank you so much, Brian, as well. While we wait for our video feed to actually show up so we can switch to that, we'll just do like that, and we are back on screen. Sorry for the delay here. It's my first day as a technician, and it's probably my last day as well. But anywho, we're trying our best. So we will end this with a bit of Q&A. But before that, just I will talk a bit about what's going on in the industry outside of our region, and also how that has affected our region, how we work with our projects. So we have Leona on screen, I hear. I try to do like this and see if something happens. Now, my fault again. Well, what's going on right now? We heard Lars tell us a bit about how you say resilient the gaming industry is compared to other industries, and how perhaps unaffected it might be by the pandemic. But also we see that there are actually different parts of the gaming industry really affected in different ways. I read the other day about some growth concerning the US gaming industry, that games were up when it comes to sales like 30%, and when it comes to hardware, that was up like 60-something%, and that's of course is quite a lot. But also we have esports, that part of business, that's sort of going down, because I mean you have all these events, LAN events, that can't take place because you need to gather a bunch of people in a huge arena. And I'm guessing if we have someone in esports here, that affects sponsorships and stuff like that as well, so that's pretty hard. A lot of event shows have been cancelled. We were going to E3, that didn't happen. We were going to San Francisco, that didn't happen. And although that might not affect large companies that already have their products out there, it really affects the indie scene. Because this is the way we can go out there and sort of be face-to-face with potential capital, be face-to-face with potential publishers. So that has affected the indie scene quite a lot. But then again, when it comes to Innovation Game 2, we have been able to sort of pivot the idea a bit and transform within this pandemic. So what we're seeing here behind us, this Arctic Game Talk, that's one of these things that have actually changed, and how we have switched our activities to other things now that we can't travel and so forth. But also we are trying to find ways to bring the capital, bring the investors, bring the money closer to our studios. So we will have some interesting and important news about that further on as well. So we are trying to adapt, and I think we are adapting fast thanks to all the people around here working within the cluster. Probably thanks to all the passion that all these people are showing. So thank you for that as well. We will try and have a short Q&A now before we end, and let's see if we have any questions in the chat.
I can't see any questions, so I would just like to comment on Brian and Leonora, and it's great to have people outside of the region to actually acknowledge the success that we see ourselves. And also to emphasize that we have brave politicians. It's not every day a municipality set out a goal to create a completely new industry. And to be long-term in that investment is very important. And we can also see the benefits, as you say now, that the indie games are struggling because they can't go out and meet the investors. Being part of Arctic Game Lab is also to be part of a larger network, so someone knows someone that knows someone, so we can share those contacts within the cluster.
So true. And this, I mean, these contacts, they have been built up for the last about 4 years, going abroad, going to events, meeting other studios as well. So there's a lot of connections between global and regional companies at the moment that you can sort of benefit from, as Anja is saying. Anything from our speakers that you would like to emphasize or sort of ask us now that we're sitting here in the spotlight, so to speak? Just wave your hand or unmute your mic, and that will be totally fine. Brian looks eager.
Well, okay. So how is the current pandemic affecting your decision making right now as what you're doing?
Yeah, a good question and a very evident one right now. So we have sort of switched basically all of our activities to online activities, and also the Arctic Game Week and the planned conferences, Nordtren and all the activities surrounding that. That is sort of one of the most important things for this cluster, both when it comes to marketing us abroad, but also doing something that's valuable for our studios and the people involved here. So what we did there was actually to start this. The first step was starting this Arctic Game Talk to not end up just being a voice that goes silent all of a sudden. And what we realized with that is that, okay, this is something we should have done earlier, pandemic or no pandemic. I mean, these sort of Arctic Game Talks, these webinars, why haven't we done that before? So the pandemic actually created ideas for us that we probably will keep on doing, I'm thinking. Do you have anything else to add on that?
I think we can see that in every sector, not only in the gaming industry, that we are learning new ways to communicate, and hopefully the gaming industry will come out as one of the winners. People are getting more comfortable meeting in a digital way and also to communicate in digital channels, and that can easily be put into games, that the games itself will be a way to communicate and interact.
True. Yeah, we of course see a lot of more gaming if we watch like Steam, for example, and see numbers on that, but also streaming on services like Netflix or other. We see that with this social distancing, you need to find some other way of socialize, because, I mean, people are social creatures. I mean, you can't like shut us in and expect us to do nothing. We will find other ways. And so we have, and perhaps, as you say, games is one way of that. We will end this now if there aren't any more questions. I don't see any of the speakers waving their arms, but we would like to say from our behalf, really thank you all for sharing this time with us here on screen. And to our speakers, thank you for sharing from your perspective what you're doing and all the incredible work you're doing. So until next time, which is Wednesday and the next Arctic Game Talk.
We got one question now.
Good.
Last minute.
Really last minute?
Yes. Have you been working with literature about video game design? If so, have you seen any effects on the industry?
So who's best to answer that question, really? Because I don't feel that I am. Have you been working with literature about video game design? If so, have you seen any effects on the industry?
Maybe that's
myself and Robert probably engage with this a little bit. What I find with the literature on video game design is sometimes it's retroactive, so it's already happened and the industry knows about it. And where the literature on video game design is more for what Robert does at Luleå, that they use it to educate students and make them better critical thinkers. Robert, correct me if I'm wrong.
Sure, but that's important also to keep that in balance with industrial settings.
And I think within the Arctic Game Lab, we've also included board games and the comic school, which in one way is literature.
True, really true. And that's been really important for creating these worlds, because I mean, creating games, it's not only about developing or graphics, it's about IP, it's about stories and characters and so forth. So.
And we know that there were really interesting ideas for the Arctic Game Week this year, that hopefully that will come next year instead, where we see that the literature world is very close with the gaming industry.
Yeah, exactly. And now that you say A, I mean, we can say B as well, because it's sort of official already. But we will expand the Arctic Game Week next year. That's the plan. So have a more focus on the IP and storytelling side of the business as well, because these are industries that really needs to meet each other, gaming and IP. So that'll be really interesting. If that was all questions, I just wish to say thank you all for participating, and see you again. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.